Breaking news overnight, at least 2 people are dead in a powerful storm that's battering central and southern California. In some places, as much as 8 inches of rain fell in less than 24 hours, triggering mudslides and flooding several roads and highways. Flood watches and warnings are up in many places. High winds have brought down trees and power lines, leaving tens of thousands of people without power for a time.
The storm is part of a massive weather system coming in from the Pacific Ocean, and it could bring some of the heaviest rainfall to California in 6 years. After months of rain that has already made up for years of drought in the state. Carter Evans is in Los Angeles with the latest. Carter, good morning.
Well, the rain has tapered off for a bit, and that's giving workers an opportunity to attempt to remove the 2 cars. You can see that one dipping back down inside this 40-foot deep sinkhole. It opened up sometime last night, part of a slow-moving weather system that has caused fatal accidents, power outages, and significant property damage over the last 12 hours. Heavy rain pounded Southern California on Friday, causing flash floods that turned roads into rivers. At one point, more than a half dozen major freeways and highways around the region were reportedly closed. The rising water left commuters stranded. This man scrambled out of his window and onto the bed of a pickup truck after his car became stuck in the rising water. Swift water rescue teams were deployed throughout the area to assist residents trapped by the fast-moving floods.
When it started rising, it came in like half an hour later. It was time we got out, yeah.
Authorities rescued this man from the top of his partially submerged car, but when they entered the vehicle under the water, they found a body inside. It was one of at least 2 deaths linked to the storm.
A very dangerous situation.
A 20-foot sinkhole opened in this residential road that had been underwater for most of the day, swallowing a car into the rushing water below. Firefighters were able to rescue the driver not long before.
There goes the car. There goes the car.
The sinkhole claimed another vehicle. This one empty. In the mountains surrounding Los Angeles, rain saturated the hillsides, creating the perfect conditions for mudslides. All that rain in the mountains is coming downhill fast, turning streams into rivers and cutting off access to some homes. Winds of up to 80 miles per hour toppled power lines and hundreds of trees, sending them onto roadways, cars, and homes.
A gust of wind came and all of a sudden the tree came tumbling down on top of the house.
The storm also affected air travel, forcing the cancellation of hundreds of flights and turning the Santa Barbara airport into a lake.
I saw the end of the world. I could feel all this death.
Everything they've built will fall! And from the ashes of their world, we'll build a better one.
A Geraldton man has survived a brush with death after being rescued from floodwaters near Greenough. Andrew Kaziki told 9 News how he risked his own life to save his mate, who was swept out to sea after the river broke its banks.
It started as a man swimming in the swollen Greenough River for a thrill. Within minutes, he was swept out to sea by the fast-flowing current. A group of locals had gathered at Cape Burney after the Greenough River broke its banks yesterday afternoon. A sandbar wedged between the river mouth and the ocean, obliterated by floodwaters. By the time Michael Paul entered the river at 1:30, conditions had deteriorated.
Michael went for a swim. He got washed out to sea. He got 150 metres or so offshore.
From the beach, Andrew Koziki saw his mate was in trouble.
There was a bloke there with a surfboard, grabbed the surfboard and just went out there and got him pretty much.
He dragged him onto his surfboard and brought him to shore, limp, unconscious and barely breathing. Rescuers began CPR, keeping the 36-year-old alive until an ambulance arrived. He was then rushed to hospital. Authorities have urged locals not to risk their lives for a thrill that easily could have turned deadly. The latest this evening is that the man's been discharged from hospital and he's now recovering at home. He told his friends if he'd been in the water for just 20 seconds longer, he wouldn't have survived. He did take in a lot of water, but is now otherwise okay. Meanwhile, the floodwaters here at Grenfell River have receded, but authorities warn they could rise again, and the situation is potentially dangerous. They say people should be very cautious when entering the water here. Lou?
Did you feel it? An earthquake just after 5:30 this morning off the Big Island. People as far away as Maui, Molokai, even Oahu said they felt it. We first told you about the magnitude 4.7 quake on Wake Up Today. Thankfully, no tsunami was generated.
A new study has presented evidence that Earth has an 8th continent called Zealandia. The landmass is based around New Zealand and covers almost 5 million square kilometers, of which 94% is underwater. The study was published in the Geological Society of America journal, with lead author Nick Mortimer highlighting the difficulty of researching a continent that is mostly submerged. Zealandia is believed to have broken away from Australia about 80 million years ago, sinking beneath the sea as part of the breakup of the supercontinent known as Gondwanaland.
Okay. Thank you very much. There goes the shovel.
Oh my gosh. Oh, there goes the tree.
Oh, the whole mountain was sliding. It's recording. It's coming down.
In Mozambique, a tropical cyclone that hit the eastern coast on Wednesday has killed 7 people, raising the death toll from 4 people earlier this week. The storm has brought heavy rains and winds of up to 160 kilometers an hour, raising the risk of flooding and crop damage in the southern African country. According to a statement released by Mozambique's Emergency Operational Center, about 130,000 people living in the Inhambane province, which is 500 kilometers north of the capital Maputo, had been affected by the storm. Damage could be inflicted on Mozambique's multi-million-dollar macadamia nut industry. Subsistence maize farmers recovering from last year's El Niño-triggered drought are also at risk.
Initial reports show that 4 people have lost their lives, 3 of whom were fatally hit by broken coconut trees. At this moment, there are approximately 14 injured people, none of them in serious condition. From what we can see, almost all infrastructure, including government buildings, have been damaged. Almost all buildings are partially or completely without roofs. And the schools have also partially or totally lost their roofs, and their windows were blown away. Electricity posts have been knocked down, trees have fallen, but these are preliminary evaluations.
And we told you earlier about the man who died in Sherman Oaks after a power line fell on top of a car. Well, the storm has also turned deadly in Victorville, where one person died when floodwaters overswept their car.
Our Crystal Cruz is live in Victorville with the very latest tonight. Crystal?
Hi, Jeff. We now know this was a man. He was driving his car, and according to a witness, he was trying to cross a road, and that is when water came out of nowhere, and it pulled him right into the wash. And you can see right behind me, there are 3 cars. It actually pulled 3 cars into the wash. The driver of the silver Mercedes, he did not make it. Now, the driver of the black car, he actually got out of his car, climbed out of the window, got onto the roof, and he was rescued by a crew in the air. So that is amazing out here tonight. But the driver of the silver car, he did not make it. Now, I'm told the water was at least 6 feet high, so that is way over the roof of the silver car. Now, rescue crews, they have cleaned up for the night. Now they're just waiting for the water to leave, and they will remove all 3 of these vehicles out here. Now, I did speak to the driver of the white truck. There's a 3rd car out here, a white truck. He survived. He pulled off. He's going to come back a little bit later to get his truck. I also spoke to a fire battalion chief who told me, the water was really high. He doesn't know exactly what happened, but he did know that the water 6 feet high. So the driver of the silver Mercedes, he was not able to make it out alive. Back out here live, fire crews have packed up. They're getting ready to go, and the body has been pulled out, so now they're just waiting on the coroner to come pick him up. Reporting live in Victorville tonight, I'll send it back to you in the studio.
Police have said on Saturday that firefighters have extinguished a fire at a Torrance, California oil refinery after an early morning explosion. According to a report in the Los Angeles Times, the Torrance Police Department has said on its Facebook page that the incident had no impact off the site of a former ExxonMobil Corporation refinery that is now owned by Torrance Refining Company. The refinery has been in constant observation since the explosion, as small fires and flames have been reportedly spotted, raising concerns among residents who live nearby.
In the second unresolved problem segment tonight, religious freedom and same-sex marriage. Yesterday, Washington State Supreme Court struck a blow to Baronelle Stutzman, a florist who refused to provide her services to a gay wedding. Stutzman claimed doing so would have violated her religious beliefs, but the court ruled that she had violated the state's anti-discrimination laws. Stutzman says she now plans to appeal her case to the United States Supreme Court, potentially setting up a major legal showdown over religious freedom. Joining us now from Atlanta, Robin Byro, a Democratic strategist and LGBT activist, and from Orlando, Sandy Rios, Director of Governmental Affairs for the American Family Association. So, Robin, let me start with you. I'll play devil's advocate here. If a Christian baker refuses to bake a wedding cake for a gay couple, that's discriminatory to many people. But if a designer refuses to dress Melania Trump because of political beliefs, isn't that also discriminatory? What's the difference?
Now, I see your point, and I see your spin. However, she has a public business. There's a sign in front of her business that says open for business. It's open for business to the public, to all of the public. Right. Now, Melania Trump was trying to get a specially commissioned gown. That's a special commission. Now, if this florist wanted to just do specially commissioned flowers for people, she could do that, but she's open for business to the general public. She cannot discriminate against people based on their religion. Right. Washington State protects against discrimination from LGBT and familial status. So, I mean, you can't go down this road.
I understand.
It's a slippery slope.
I understand it's a slippery slope. And Sandy, let me hit you with something now. So if you're a Christian baker and you believe that it's a sin, gay marriage and gay weddings, and you don't want to align yourself with that, does that mean that every customer that comes in that wants a cake that may be a liar or maybe a adulterer or maybe a cheater or a thief, do you have to look into their sin history in order to make a determination whether or not you want to fire up the oven?
No, I guess the answer to that, Jesse, would be that you would have no customers, and you yourself could never bake a cake or do floral arrangements. Because we all got some stuff. Yeah.
Right.
No. The point is, it's not that you have a litmus test for someone's moral purity. The point is that Barronelle is being forced to embrace and endorse and give her artistry to something that she feels violates her religious faith. And I have to say, probably because we live in such a culture that's so removed from our morals, people don't understand that the whole union between one man and one woman started in the history of the God of our fathers in this country, the history of creation, male and female.
Yeah.
And the union of man and woman is sacred. And so what we're asking Barronelle to do is not embrace people. She's done flower arrangements for this couple before. She knows them. They've been friends for years. She was actually set up with this. It's just that because she's a Christian, she cannot lend her artistry to something that she feels is an immoral union that breaches her conscience.
Well, and hundreds of Mexicans and Americans forming a human wall to protest a wall. It happened on the border of Juarez, Mexico, and El Paso, Texas, as a show of outrage over President Trump's promised border wall to keep illegals out. The Department of Homeland Security hoping to have a real border wall complete within the next 2 years.
At 6, local foreign policy experts weigh in on what's going on between the White House and the Kremlin. They also weigh in on whether that Russian intelligence ship off the east coast of the country is an unusual event. Target 12 investigator Tim White is here now with the details.
The experts we talked to say the Russian ship off the east coast is not unusual until you combine it with other recent moves made by the Russians. During a taping of Newsmakers, two foreign policy experts disagree with President Donald Trump on this.
Russia is fake news. This is fake news put out by the media.
So there is something in terms of a strategic approach by the Kremlin and Vladimir Putin in particular to undermine NATO, to undermine the EU, and I would argue to further isolate the United States from its traditional partners.
News this week of a Russian intelligence vessel off the east coast of the United States.
The spy ship off the coast is not a big deal.
Is it not? So
it's a regular thing, but because it is tied to at least two things that are a big deal, that's critical.
Michael Kennedy of Brown University's Watson Institute says the intelligence ship combined with the test firing of a Russian ballistic missile and the buzzing of a U.S. warship by a Russian fighter jet means Vladimir Putin is testing President Trump.
So now he's putting Trump on notice that he better play the playbook that Putin has shared, not the playbook that the Democrats and responsible Republicans are offering him.
I think Putin is playing a really aggressive game.
Jim Ludis of the Pell Center also says fake news is nothing new. The Russians have been using it as a propaganda tool for decades, but it's much riskier now with how quickly misinformation moves on social media.